Charles Spurgeon, a preacher known for his eloquent and powerful messages, consistently emphasized the urgency of action in his sermons. He understood the human tendency to delay, to wait for the perfect time or the ideal circumstances to take action. But Spurgeon, with his deep spiritual insight, always reminded his listeners that the best time to begin is now. He recognized that waiting for a more convenient time or a more favorable season often leads to inaction and regret. In Spurgeon's view, when we feel the call to act, whether it is to make a significant change in our lives, to serve others, or to respond to God's prompting, that call is urgent. The present moment is always the right time to start because delay can lead to missed opportunities that may never come around again. He often spoke about how, when we delay, we allow time to slip away, and with it, the precious moments of opportunity. Procrastination, in this sense, becomes a thief that robs us of the chances we have in life to make a meaningful difference. The urgency of action was not only related to spiritual matters, but it also extended to practical aspects of life. Spurgeon knew that many of his listeners were hesitant to act on their faith because they believed that their actions would have no immediate results, or that they would need more time to prepare. But Spurgeon strongly opposed this notion. He understood that the best way to prepare for anything is to start. There is no need to wait until you feel completely ready or until you feel you know everything about the task at hand. He encouraged his congregation to begin the journey of faith, service, or change as soon as they felt the call to do so. This urgency was especially evident in his teachings on salvation. Spurgeon often preached about the fleeting nature of life and the dangers of waiting for the right time to turn to God. He made it clear that the opportunity for salvation should not be postponed. Each moment spent hesitating could be a moment lost forever. Life is uncertain, and we do not know what tomorrow holds. Waiting could result in the missed opportunity of a lifetime. For Spurgeon, the present was always the best time to seek God and to start walking on the path of salvation. He knew that many people were waiting for some external sign or some event to push them into action, but he stressed that the right time was already here. Now was the moment to make a decision and to take the first step towards salvation. Spurgeon emphasized that action is necessary for growth and progress. Without action there is no movement, and without movement there is no change. Many individuals, he noted, have grand dreams and lofty aspirations, but they never see them come to fruition because they are waiting for the perfect moment. Spurgeon, however, encouraged his listeners to take the first step, no matter how small or imperfect it might seem. It is only through taking action, no matter how hesitant or uncertain, that progress begins. The act of starting sets everything in motion. As soon as we take that first step, we open the door for God's grace to work through us, enabling us to grow and make a difference. Spurgeon's life itself was a testament to the importance of urgent action. He did not wait for years to prepare before he began preaching. He acted swiftly when he felt the call of God upon his life. His ministry grew rapidly because of his promptness to respond to God's direction. He knew that time was of the essence and that, when God calls, there is no time to waste. The urgency Spurgeon spoke of also has a deep connection with the sense of purpose and calling that God instills in each individual. He believed that when we recognize a divine calling, the response should not be delayed. The longer we wait, the less likely we are to follow through, as our initial zeal and sense of purpose can fade with time. Spurgeon understood that God equips us at the moment of calling, and there is no need to delay or wait for further preparation. The Lord will guide us as we go, and the path will become clearer with every step taken in faith. In sum, the urgency of action, as advocated by Spurgeon, is not just about responding quickly, it's about recognizing that the present moment holds immeasurable value. Each moment spent waiting is a moment lost. When we feel that inner call, whether to pursue a new direction in life or to follow God more closely, it is vital that we act without hesitation. By doing so, we honor the fleeting nature of time and embrace the opportunities before us. Procrastination, the act of delaying or postponing tasks, is a habit that many of us fall into, often with the best of intentions. Yet it is a habit that can have dangerous consequences particularly when it comes to matters of great importance. In the sermons of Charles Spurgeon, we find a repeated call to urgency, especially when it comes to matters of salvation, decision-making, and life's pivotal moments. He warned that procrastination not only wastes time, but also causes us to miss out on the opportunities that God places before us. One of the reasons we delay action is the belief that there will be a better time in the future. We often convince ourselves that we will act tomorrow or next week when things are more convenient, when we are more prepared, or when we feel more capable. However, the very act of postponing prevents us from acting in the present. Spurgeon often emphasized that the present moment is the only one we truly have. The future is uncertain, and it may never come in the way we expect it. Delaying a decision because we think we can always do it later is akin to closing our eyes to the opportunities God provides in the here and now. Spurgeon's message was clear the moment you feel the call, whether to make a life-changing decision, to turn toward faith, or to embark on a new endeavor, that is the time to act. He often noted that the best time to begin is not when we are ready by our own standards, but when God is calling us to take the first step. Procrastination, therefore, is not just an inconvenience, but a spiritual and moral danger. It leads to stagnation, missed opportunities, and a gradual numbing of the heart to God's voice. The longer we delay, the harder it becomes to respond. Procrastination can allow fear and doubt to take root in our hearts. When we delay making decisions or taking action, we give space for negative thoughts to grow. We begin to doubt ourselves, question our abilities, and most dangerously, doubt God's plans for us. Spurgeon often reminded his listeners that faith requires immediate action. When we feel the pull to act, to change, or to respond to a divine call, we must act swiftly. Postponing such actions can lead to missed moments of spiritual growth and development. In his sermons, Spurgeon also warned about the spiritual danger of procrastination in the context of salvation. He often spoke about the urgency of responding to God's call, urging people to not wait for a more convenient time or a more suitable moment to surrender their hearts. Many people, he noted, put off repentance and faith, thinking that they would be able to seek God when they were older or more settled in life. However, this is a dangerous path. Spurgeon pointed out that none of us is promised tomorrow. He often referred to the Bible's teachings about the fleeting nature of life, saying that now, in the present moment, is the time to turn to God. Furthermore, procrastination often causes us to delay fulfilling other important responsibilities, such as helping others, making amends with those we've wronged, or even pursuing our God-given passions. Spurgeon highlighted that the call to serve others is often immediate and must be acted upon without hesitation. Delaying our service to others or putting off acts of kindness can lead to a life filled with missed opportunities to spread love, grace, and truth. Procrastination makes us less effective, not just spiritually, but also in all areas of life. The longer we wait to take action, the harder it becomes to get started. It takes discipline and courage to act immediately, but Spurgeon taught that it is the only way to truly live with purpose and in alignment with God's will. The longer we delay, the more we risk remaining stuck in the same place, never growing or evolving into the individuals God has designed us to be. Procrastination, thus, is more than just an inconvenience. It's a barrier to personal growth, spiritual progress, and fulfilling our God-given potential. By choosing to act now, we embrace the opportunities before us, trusting that God's timing is always perfect. The present moment is a gift, and Spurgeon's sermons remind us to use it wisely, for tomorrow may be too late. In the teachings of Charles Spurgeon, the importance of God's timing is a recurring theme. He firmly believed that God's ways and plans are always perfect, and this divine timing surpasses human understanding. Many times we are tempted to make decisions based on what seems right at the moment, or we delay action, hoping for a more convenient time. However, Spurgeon encouraged believers to trust that the time God has ordained for action is always the right time. When we are faced with a decision, whether it pertains to faith, career, relationships, or life changes, there is often a tendency to overthink and try to control the outcome. Spurgeon reminds us that in such moments, it is crucial to rely on God's guidance and trust His timing. Human nature might push us to rush things or hold back due to fear or uncertainty, but Spurgeon insisted that, when we leave matters in God's hands, He will ensure that things unfold at the right time. This idea of trusting God's timing also means recognizing that we are not in control of the bigger picture. Our understanding is limited, and we cannot always see what lies ahead. Often we may think that we are ready to take the next step in our spiritual walk or in any aspect of life, but we must remember that God knows us better than we know ourselves. His perspective is eternal, and He knows when we are truly prepared for what is ahead. A recurring example in Spurgeon's sermons is the story of God's perfect timing in the lives of biblical figures. Take the example of Abraham, who was promised a son by God at an old age. To human eyes, it seemed absurd to believe that such a promise could come to fruition, especially when the years of waiting seemed endless. However, in God's time, Isaac was born, fulfilling the promise in a way that only divine timing could orchestrate. Similarly, Spurgeon often spoke of the timing in the life of Jesus Christ. Jesus did not perform miracles or make His presence known until the moment ordained by the Father. He waited for God's perfect moment, and His ministry unfolded as the world needed it most. This perspective allows us to feel at peace when we face delays in our lives. Instead of seeing setbacks as obstacles, Spurgeon encouraged us to view them as part of God's plan. Sometimes we may feel impatient when things don't go as planned, or when we are waiting for the right moment to act. However, as Spurgeon would remind us, waiting is not inactivity, it is part of the process of God's plan being revealed to us. It allows us to grow in faith, develop patience, and deepen our trust in the Lord's guidance. Furthermore, understanding and trusting God's timing brings about a profound sense of peace. When we surrender to His will, we are able to let go of our anxieties about what comes next. Instead of forcing things to happen, we rest in the assurance that God's will is always good, even when we cannot immediately see the results. Spurgeon often emphasized that God's timing is not only perfect but also filled with grace and mercy. Sometimes we might feel as though we are ready to take a certain step in life, but God knows that a little more growth or preparation is needed. It is through this waiting process that we learn more about God's character, and our own character is refined. In moments of doubt or confusion, when it seems like time is slipping away, Spurgeon urged believers to remember that God's plan is never delayed. What may appear to be a delay from a human perspective is simply the unfolding of God's perfect timing. It is a reminder that His ways are higher than ours, and His understanding of time and readiness is far beyond our limited view. Therefore, waiting for God's timing is not a sign of inactivity, but an act of faith in His wisdom and goodness. The power of the present moment is a theme that Charles Spurgeon frequently emphasized in his sermons, and it is a concept that can profoundly impact how we approach life's challenges and decisions. Too often, people find themselves caught up in the idea that they need to wait for the perfect moment or the right set of circumstances before they take action. However, Spurgeon believed that the present, as imperfect as it may seem, holds the greatest potential for growth and progress. One of the most powerful truths Spurgeon shared is the idea that the present moment is the only time we can truly influence. The past is behind us, and the future is unknown. Therefore, waiting for the perfect time often leads to inaction. Many individuals spend a large part of their lives waiting for the right conditions to align before they begin pursuing their goals or making life-changing decisions. Spurgeon urged his listeners to realize that there is no such thing as a perfect moment. Life is filled with uncertainties, and the only time that we have control over is the present. In his teachings, Spurgeon often referenced the need to embrace the current moment because it is the moment that God has ordained for us. He taught that God's timing is always perfect, but that does not mean we should wait indefinitely for things to become perfect in our eyes. Instead, we must trust in the divine plan and recognize that the time to act is always now, for this is the moment we have been given. Spurgeon understood the human tendency to procrastinate or delay action, often out of fear, doubt, or a sense of inadequacy. However, he believed that acting now, no matter how small the steps, was far more beneficial than waiting for an ideal situation. Procrastination not only hinders personal progress, but can also delay the fulfillment of God's purpose for our lives. Through the lens of faith, Spurgeon encouraged his followers to believe that God would provide what they needed in the present to take action and move forward, even if it seemed like the circumstances were not perfect. One of the critical aspects of embracing the present is the realization that each moment holds the potential for transformation. When we decide to act in the present, even with little to no preparation, we create an opportunity for learning and growth that we may never encounter again. The present moment is an opportunity to trust in our abilities and the guidance of God. It is a chance to step out in faith, not knowing all the details, but trusting that each step will lead to a clearer path. Additionally, by focusing on the present, we are encouraged to prioritize what truly matters. The present moment allows us to focus our energy on the tasks at hand and not waste time worrying about the future or regretting the past. Spurgeon emphasized that every small action taken in the present moves us closer to our goals, and that even when things don't go according to plan, we still grow in character and faith. Thus, he promoted a mindset that valued the present over the imagined future or the past. Spurgeon's view of the present also challenges us to reevaluate our attitudes toward time. The present is not simply a fleeting moment that should be disregarded in anticipation of something better. Instead, the present should be embraced fully, as it is the only moment in which we can make a difference, both in our own lives and in the lives of others. Each day offers a fresh opportunity to take action, make decisions, and impact the world. We are not promised tomorrow, and therefore the present moment is all we can rely on. In the grand scheme of things, the present is all we have to work with. It is within the present moment that we have the power to change our trajectory. The past is unchangeable, and the future is unknown, but the present is where we can experience growth, transformation, and success. In Spurgeon's teachings, there was an undeniable call to seize the present moment with faith and purpose, knowing that it is the key to living a meaningful and impactful life. Embracing the power of the present is not only about action, but also about cultivating a mindset of mindfulness and awareness. Spurgeon's message to his listeners was clear: do not let the present slip away while waiting for an ideal future. The moment to act, to change, and to grow is now, and it is in the present that we can truly make a difference in our own lives and in the world around us. One of the greatest hindrances that stop us from taking action is the fear of failure. It is a paralyzing force that grips many individuals, preventing them from starting something new or pursuing their dreams. This fear is not unfounded. It is rooted in a deep concern about the consequences of not succeeding, the judgment of others, and the shame of falling short of expectations. But when we examine the message of Charles Spurgeon, we find a clear and powerful rebuttal to this fear. Spurgeon understood the weight of failure and how it can cause a person to hesitate in taking the first step. He recognized that many people spend their lives on the sidelines, watching others succeed, because they are afraid to make a move, fearing that they might fail. But Spurgeon's perspective on failure was revolutionary. He taught that failure is not the end of the road. In fact, it is a natural part of the journey towards success and spiritual growth. In Spurgeon's sermons, he often referenced the idea that the path to salvation, growth, and victory in life is not free from setbacks. He pointed out that many of the great figures in the Bible, such as Moses, David, and Paul, encountered failures, setbacks, and moments of doubt. Yet these figures did not allow their failures to define them. Instead, they used them as stepping stones for future success. Moses initially failed in his attempt to free the Israelites, but through his failures, he learned how to trust God more fully and to rely on God's guidance. David, despite his mistakes and sins, was a man after God's own heart because he continually sought redemption and never allowed his failures to deter him from his purpose. Spurgeon argued that the fear of failure often stems from a misunderstanding of what failure truly is. It is easy to think that failure is a sign of weakness or a permanent defeat, but in reality, failure is simply a lesson in disguise. Each failure offers valuable insights into what works and what doesn't, and it shapes us into the person we need to become in order to succeed. Spurgeon encouraged his listeners not to fear failure, but to see it as part of the process. a necessary step in reaching the higher goals that God has set before them. Additionally, Spurgeon highlighted that the fear of failure often results from an excessive focus on self. When we worry about how others will perceive us, or how our failures might affect our reputation, we allow the fear of failure to control us. However, Spurgeon reminded his congregation that life is not about seeking approval from others or trying to maintain a flawless image. Instead, it is about serving a higher purpose and living for something greater than our own personal comfort and safety. In this light, failure is no longer something to be feared, but something to be embraced as a necessary part of the journey towards spiritual maturity and growth. Spurgeon's teachings encourage us to stop worrying about what might go wrong and start focusing on what can go right. If we are faithful in taking action and trusting in God's plan, He will use both our successes and our failures to shape us into the people we are meant to be. The fear of failure often fades when we shift our focus from the potential for defeat to the certainty of God's faithfulness. Furthermore, Spurgeon often spoke of the importance of perseverance. He taught that while we may fail in one area, the key to success lies in our ability to rise again. It is in the struggle and the persistence through hardship that true victory is found. Those who are willing to fail and try again are the ones who will ultimately achieve success, for they have developed the resilience needed to weather the storms of life. Therefore, fear of failure should not stop us from starting. In fact, the very presence of fear can be a sign that we are about to do something important. Spurgeon's message was clear: begin now, even in the face of fear, and trust that God will guide us through every step, teaching us valuable lessons along the way. From an eternal perspective, life is but a fleeting moment, and time is one of the most valuable gifts given to humanity. In the light of eternity, the choices we make today will carry long-lasting consequences, not just for the present, but for the everlasting future. Charles Spurgeon often spoke about the brevity of life and the eternal nature of the soul, urging his listeners to reflect on how short our time on earth truly is. The preciousness of each moment is underscored when we think about the eternal impact our decisions can have. The Bible frequently reminds us of the fleeting nature of life. James 4:14 says, "What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes." This passage serves as a wake-up call, urging us to live with an awareness of how brief our time on earth really is. Spurgeon, in his sermons, echoed this truth repeatedly, teaching his congregation that time wasted today may not be recoverable tomorrow. When we delay action or put off important decisions, we are not just missing an opportunity for success or growth, we are allowing precious moments to slip by that we can never reclaim. In the light of eternity, delaying is not just a matter of missed opportunities in this world, it can also have spiritual consequences. For those who are not yet saved, putting off the decision to follow Christ is a dangerous thing. Spurgeon often spoke of the urgency of responding to God's call. He reminded his listeners that salvation is not something to be postponed, as one never knows when their life may come to an end. Now is the day of salvation, he would proclaim, urging his listeners to come to Christ without delay. To wait for a more convenient time, or to put off repentance, could result in eternal separation from God. Similarly, the decisions we make in the present moment regarding our spiritual walk can impact our future both in this life and the life to come. Spurgeon often emphasized the eternal rewards that await those who faithfully serve God in the present. When we act with an eternal perspective, we understand that our actions now are not just about immediate outcomes, they are about building up treasures in heaven. Jesus said in Matthew 6:19-21, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." The eternal nature of our decisions makes the present time even more significant. Spurgeon also encouraged his listeners to view their daily decisions and actions through the lens of eternity. He would challenge them to ask themselves, is this choice, this moment, this action, something that aligns with God's eternal purposes? When we understand the eternal perspective, we realize that every choice we make has a far-reaching impact. The decisions we delay today may not just affect our temporary comfort or success, they could impact our eternal standing. As we live in a world where time constantly slips away, the eternal perspective forces us to reevaluate how we use the precious moments given to us. The truth is that waiting for a better time often means allowing time to pass without meaningful action. The task we put off today, whether it is a decision to make things right with someone, pursuing our purpose, or answering a divine calling, could have an eternal effect. Delaying may mean missing out on what God has called us to do in this life, and the consequences of that can affect not just our earthly lives, but also our eternal destiny. In the grand scheme of eternity, the present moment is the only one we truly possess. The past is gone, and the future is unknown. What we have is now. Spurgeon's call to urgency is a call to recognize that now is the time to act, and to delay action is to waste the precious time we have been given. As he often reminded his listeners, time on earth is a brief moment in comparison to eternity, and how we choose to live in this moment determines the life we will have for all eternity,